what's happening? Tom Deacon here for Nitro Nights. Welcome back to another episode for all of your esports racing needs. Great to have so many of you back again. And for any newbies, this is what the show's all about. 3 times a week, I bring you a show with a brand new guest. We'll be talking about the tournaments that are taking place, plus all of the hot topics that are happening in the community. Listen, guys, you will not want to miss any of those episodes. And in the last episode, we gave you the chance to win a G29 wheel from Logitech, and I confirm now with you the winner. Drum roll. I should have got a drum for this. Is congratulations to Harrison Conway. Thank you very much for taking part. To everybody, Harrison Conway is the winner, so that wheel will be wheeling itself to you. No time for jokes. Now, if you don't want to miss out on any of the action, make sure you follow us on Twitter and also subscribe to this YouTube channel so that you never miss an episode. Right then, that's everything done at the top of the show. Let's move straight into the Newsflash. And a bit of sad news, actually, because we head to NASCAR iRacing. Last time, we brought you the news that a driver had some rage quit. That was Bubba Wallace. He lost his partnership and sponsorship because of that. Now we have Kyle Larson being dropped for using a racial slur. Now, Larson, 6 times NASCAR Cup Series winner, who is half Japanese, who is graduate of the NASCAR Drive for Diversity program. On Monday, found out Chip Ganassi Racing fired Larson, and NASCAR suspended him indefinitely. This is what NASCAR had to say about the situation and incident. NASCAR has made diversity and inclusion a priority and will not tolerate the type of language used by Kyle Larson during Sunday's iRacing event. Our member conduct guidelines are clear in this regard, and we will enforce these guidelines to maintain an inclusive environment for our entire industry and fan base. Well, that's what NASCAR had to say. What did Kyle Larson have to say? Well, he recorded this video.
I just want to say I'm sorry. Last night I made a mistake and said the word that should never, ever be said. And, there's no excuse for that. I wasn't raised that way. It's just an awful thing to say. And I feel very sorry for my family, my friends, my partners, the NASCAR community, and especially the African American community. I understand the damage is probably unrepairable, and, I own up to that. But I just wanted to let you all know how sorry I am. And, I hope everybody is staying safe during these crazy times. Thank you.
So there you have it then, Kyle Larson's statement. From this, hopefully lessons will be learned. There you go. Moving on, the Race All-Star Series is now turning into an All-Star Cup. The top sim racer will receive a full day's test in a Formula One team simulator, including flights to the UK and accommodation, brackets subject to lifting of travel restrictions from COVID-19 pandemic, and $30,000 will be donated to the charity of the top pro driver's choice. So there you go, something very much to get involved in. Now, Rudy Van Buren, a former guest, his run of podium finishes came to an end at the weekend. Previous guest on the show, as I said, make sure you go back and watch it. He got in a collision with Lint, meaning that Erhan Jawowski won the race. And as you can see him crossing the line, a big points win for him. And he was also 4.5 seconds ahead of second place Bono Huis. Great drive from him to bring it home. He said, lost for words, went into this with no expectations, but came out on top. It feels so good to finally win after so many mishaps. Well, as we always say on this show, perseverance in sim racing is key, guys. Now, often we've mentioned about setups with your sim rig, and I would like to share with you 2 interesting setups with what we'd say non-high-end gaming rigs. As you can see here, Jacques Villeneuve, 1997 F1 world champion, took part in the Invitational Legends Trophy. That's where you have to be over 40 years of age, and that's part of the hashtag The Race Must Go On. If you look closely, you'll see he's got an Xbox controller and a laptop. But with that, he still managed to get 6th in the race after dodging some pileups. He was able to move up the grid. Obviously, winning that race was, of course, the 2009 F1 champ Jenson Button. So incredible from Jack, but even better, how about this? Going on a 10-year-old sim wheel, Italian racing driver Emmanuel Pirro, a winner in Le Mans, DTM, and of course his last race back in 1991 at the Australian Grand Prix. This is his setup, and if you look closely, that is a box holding up his monitor. So ingenious and very creative in his setup after he won the race, and that was in the reverse race grid. He said, it's a big technical challenge, and I've definitely changed my view on these simulations now and have much more respect. So well done to those two gentlemen. Do they need a high-end rig? Well, it's proved that no, you don't. Now, moving on to a great Formula One driver, Charles Leclerc. He's set up a charity race called #Race for the World. Now, currently, $50,000 almost has been raced, and he's got a whole host of drivers together, 19 in fact, over 3 nights for one goal, and that's to raise as much money. And they're already doing an amazing job so far. As you can see, he's going to get some 6 F1 drivers, F2 drivers. There they all are, the whole list of them together to raise as much money as they possibly can to then fight against COVID-19. So amazing work from Charles Leclerc, and hopefully he'll be taking part in a few more #F1 virtual races. Now, actually, talking of Charles Leclerc, let's watch this little clip. Jimmy Broadbent on the streams, the shed dweller, had this moment in the race. So hopefully Charles Leclerc doesn't have any more of these moments where he ends up in the wall. Can't believe this actually happened.
I'm getting in the groove.
How did I get another time penalty?
Oh man! That's oh my god.
The track is clear.
You got a penalty too, Charles.
No, I just went in the wall, mate.
You just stopped, man.
No.
So there you have it. I just went into the wall, mate. That's what Charles Leclerc has. So even the best F1 drivers have an off day on the rig and in the sims. Right then, finally, final thought for Newsflash. Have you ever wondered what F1 drivers would sound like if they were to reenact the theme song? Well, wonder no more. Here it is. Be careful of your ears.
Oh my god.
No, it's one shot.
So
I'm gonna put the legumes on.
He's not.
Even Lando Norris says that is so awful. But hey, do you know what? It made me laugh. I hope it did for you too. Right, let's get the dulcet tones of our guest to help ease the pain in our ears. Let's welcome today's guest. Okay, so my guest today is an award-winning broadcaster, journalist, author, all-round cool guy, great haircut and wrist accessories. It is, of course, Mr. Will Buxton. Thank you for joining us on Nitro Nights.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here. How are you?
Very well, Will. And now I know what you're doing there. This is classic you. Normally you're the interviewer, but the roles have changed for today. Right? That isn't going to happen, all right? But okay, I do have to ask, in a fabulous book collection you've got there at the side, is there any chance you could show us around your, it looks like your office. Are you in your office?
My office, yes. I moved house this time sort of February last year. And I finally got my own little office space for the first time in like 20 years. So I sort of filled it with all my goodies. So I've got my bookcase there going up. And then there's kind of memorabilia all around the place. So that's a Rosberg shirt from when he was in GP2. That's a GP2 wing that Luca Filippi signed for me. That's some Giorgio Pantano IndyCar overalls. Tonio Liuzzi signed Tabard from 04. There's a theme here of Italian racing drivers who I sort of loved over the years, and yeah, just lots of bits of memorabilia and my phone's going, so that's always good. Sorry about that.
Live. I love it. I love it.
Professional all the way through, right?
Of course, you've got to keep the phone on, because in this industry, as a journalist, you need to be hot on the press. You need to know what's going on. The phone could be it could be a delivery of food. We don't know.
At the moment, exactly. That's it.
because it's fantastic to get you on the show, to give you get your insight into the world of F1. Now, before we do start, I did find out that you're born in Portsmouth. Now,
Yes,
being a
and I just saw
Southampton
your
lad,
Southampton logo on your trousers earlier.
yeah, that could be an issue for the show, but we'll keep that at the door for today. No
I'm
rivalry here.
not a Pompey fan. It's okay.
Oh,
It's
okay,
okay.
that's absolutely fine. Well,
I'm a
listen,
Reading
Will,
fan.
interesting. Very interesting indeed. The blue and white makes sense now. Listen, Will, introduce for people who don't know you. You're not just, as some people say, and they know, and they've got to love you from Netflix. The world of that, the way that you're able to bring
Yes.
context and bring people up to speed. People will recognize your face from that. But there's more to you. 19 years in the industry. Tell everybody what it is that makes Will Buxton.
Oh goodness, yes, not just the gobby one off Netflix. I started as a print journalist, as you say, nearly 20 years ago, for Formula One magazine in its first iteration, when it went up against F1 racing back in the day. It was Bernie's magazine, and that was my first job straight out of uni. And I'd always wanted to be a print journalist, always wanted to be a Formula One journalist since I was like 13 years old. And age 23, lost my dream job. The magazine got closed down, so I freelanced for a year, living in a camper van, driving from race to race, and kind of learning my craft. And then I got offered a role as press officer for GP2, so I did that. I PR'd Rosberg, Hamilton, Glock's championship years, which is incredible. You know, really amazing fun and huge sort of learning curve of how motor racing and journalism sort of really works. And then came back to being a print journalist again at the end of that year. And then end of sort of '08. F1 needed somebody to do commentary on GP2. And I got a call and they said, you know more about GP2 than anyone else. You've been there from the start. You talk a lot. Do you want to do some commentary? And I'd never done it in my life. I gave it a go. And after a year of doing that, I got a call from the States saying, do you want to be our new pit reporter? So I went to work for Speed Channel as their F1 pit lane reporter. Did that for 3 lovely years. Then NBC asked me to join them. Did that for 5 incredible years. And then at the end of that, F1 said, do you want to come and work for us again? So I now find myself back where I started, working for F1 officially. This time, sort of, doing all their digital content, so YouTube and Twitter, and obviously F1.com. It's been an amazing couple of years, and I was so looking forward to getting 2020 started. Landed in Australia, spent about 36 hours there, and then flew home. So spent longer in the air than we did on the ground, and just waiting for it all to start. But as you know, what's come out of the difficulties of this year, what's come out of the issues that we have this year, and not actually being able to go racing, has thrown everything into the digital domain. It's thrown everything into the virtual realm. So actually, my job as a digital presenter, and working primarily online, it hasn't really stopped. So it's been good in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a former guest we have on the show with David Perel talks about those moments of like back and forth and really that kind of struggle and keep grinding away at it. You're definitely doing that, and as we say, hopefully this season will be back up and in whatever format it will be in the future. We hope it comes back sooner than later. But in terms of, before we get to the digital side and the sim racing and really ask you about that, in terms of the challenges that you have, the interacting with the drivers, the teams, what's that kind of like, Will?
It's hard, because you're a traveling circus. So you see the same people week in, week out. They're very sort of close relationships. So you have to try not to pee anyone off. But at the same time, you can't not broach a subject just because you don't want to upset somebody. So it's a very fine line. You're constantly accused by people of being biased towards one driver or another driver. You have your favorites, but you can't afford to. You cannot have favorites. You can't be lighter towards one driver than another, or excessively harsh to one driver or another. It's not professional. B, you wouldn't survive if you did that. You couldn't do it. You will upset people from time to time, but that's just the nature of what it is to work it as a broadcaster, as a presenter, as a journalist, whatever it might be, in a very small world like that. It's 20 guys that you are face to face with for 21, 22 very high pressure weekends of a year, for 20 years. And you're gonna annoy some people along the way, but hopefully they know that you're just doing your job, they're just doing their job, and it all comes out in the wash.
And I saw that Nico Hulkenberg famously asked you, did you always plan to annoy F1 drivers for a living? Which I think is a fantastic question. And you said,
Yes,
yes.
that,
But
that
it's,
was that was
what is it that you're looking for? Is it because us racing fans want that information? We want to know the backstory to issues. Is that
yeah.
your job to find that gossip, or is it to build relationships?
So it's a bit of both, really. I think when I was a print journalist, very often as a print journalist, you start to follow a story and you get in your mind what something might be, and sometimes you'll search in an interview to find validation or a denial of what you think the story might be. So you'll ask sort of
Mm,
quite leading questions that you hope will give you the answer that you desire. And the one thing that I learned when I moved over into broadcasting is that's not quite your job. You are there more to bring over the emotion um, of the situation, of what the drivers are feeling. Try to get folks from home into that place with you and into what the drivers are going through. If you say to a driver after a race, "Oh, look like the first 30 laps were pretty difficult for you," um, you know, uh, it looked like you were struggling with tire wear, then the
mm.
driver will either go yes, and that's a one-word answer, or they'll say no, and you look like an idiot. So it's far better to say, look like you were struggling in the first 30 laps. What was the problem? So rather than searching for
Yeah, yeah.
affirmation or denial, you'll just ask the question, man. And the shorter questions usually lead to the longer answers, which then usually lead you down to wherever you're going to go to next. I always find it's best not to take in a list of questions, not to go in with any idea where you want to go with an interview. Just you ask your opener, whatever it might be, and just take it from there. Whatever path it ends up going down, you run with it, and you end up going places that you never thought you would, and
Okay.
hopefully you get something out that you never thought you would.
All right. Let's do it.
No, no,
Let's do it.
no.
There he is, Will Buxton. Let's do this. But I like that. I mean, and what have you noticed in terms of how things have changed due to Corona? How is this affecting motorsports journalism at the moment? Because people are feeling very different to how they normally feel.
Yeah, I've found out there's a lot of meetings I could have done from home. So that's been good. um, it's really hard, man. I think what's been amazing is how willing and open a lot of people have been to let us into their lives at home, for us to see what they're doing, to come on and do interviews like this from all sports actually. You notice some of the major sports shows that you might have watched that would be a staple of your life are now having to work around not being together in the studio and having to do things sitting in their living rooms, and you see how different the interactions are between people, also how different the style of presentation might be. But I think the one thing it's really shown is how much people genuinely miss sport, and how much of a
Mm,
unifier sport can be, and how much it brings people together, and how much joy it brings people as well. That while all of this is happening, and there's a real desire, obviously, and a key need for people to be healthy and to be safe, there's also a real need for people to find joy and find solace and find something that of normality that can keep them
mhm,
going. And sport is one of those things. And I think maybe we've underestimated how important sport is to people, how much they need it, and how much it genuinely means to people. So
mm.
yeah, that's been really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, obviously doing a bit of research on yourself, Will, finding out your first Grand Prix back in, I think it was 1995, the sounds, the smells you talk about, hearing
Yeah.
the Ferrari V12 engine, that roar. How much are you missing it right now?
Oh, so much, so much. Honestly, I'm just missing sort of seeing people and friends, but I miss the racing. Of course, I miss the racing.
Mm,
It's been 20 years of going to racetracks and loving. Just I've been a fan my whole life. I'm really lucky to work in it, but miss my friends, miss my colleagues, miss getting out there and seeing my heroes racing. But we still have it in one form or another, and I think
mm,
that's why we're really lucky with motorsports, is that it is one of the only sports I can think of that you can replicate in the virtual world. You can't imagine, and I've said this before, you can't imagine Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo or Aguero, sitting on the couch with a controller playing FIFA. It doesn't have the
yeah.
same feel. It's not the same game. but you can
Yeah.
sit at a wheel and pedals. And okay, the risk factor isn't the same, but the technique is ostensibly the same thing. And so to have this world, which was already growing, which was already in place, and now put the real into the virtual, and we're very, very lucky with motor racing that it can continue and it can still bring joy to people in these hard times.
Yeah. Well, listen, Will, hold that thought, because that is what I
Okay.
want to get into on this show, Nitro Nights. But before that, I feel like we've got to know you a little bit, but I want to get to know you a little bit more. And the way to do that is with the quick fire round. No
Oh
pressure.
God.
I really
Okay.
wish I hadn't ripped up all of my notes now.
Seems
But
like sort of a foolish, sort of quite
yeah,
a quick thing to do.
it was
But
funny,
let's
but
go with it.
stupid now. Right then, Will Buxton, are you ready for the quick fire round?
Yes. Is that the first question?
Yes, your time started
Cool.
then, but let's start it again now. Who's the best commentator out there?
Oh. In Formula One, in motorsport, or just across the boards?
I can ask you the same question again. Who's the best commentator
Lee,
out there?
Lee Diffie.
Okay. Best moment interviewing a driver.
Oh. Nicky Lauda complimenting me on my interview because he didn't have to, and he didn't like doing interviews, so that was really nice.
That is a great accolade. I like that. Most famous person you've forgotten their name in an interview.
Oh man. The guy who plays, I've forgotten his name, with the curly hair, but he shaves it off to play younger Patrick Stewart in the X-Men movies.
Okay, perfect. I'll take that. And
That
ironically, we've
guy.
forgotten his name.
Him.
Okay. best best dish you can cook.
Best dish I can cook?
Mm.
Anything. Throw it at me. I love to cook. Sunday roast, because it's my mum's recipe.
Okay, best music to listen to whilst writing.
Oh, I have one album that I listen to when I want to write, and it's Craig Armstrong, As If to Nothing. Has been for about 10,
Oh,
15 years.
brilliant track, that one. And also, I know that I've done some research. You love DJ Shadow as well.
Love Shadow,
Introducing
love
what an
Shadow.
album.
But
Which
that album, As If to Nothing by Craig Armstrong, perfect writing music.
perfect writing music. Okay, I'll restart the clock. Which F1 driver
Sorry.
would you like to see race the sim?
I would like to see Vettel.
Good answer. And finally, favorite video game.
Oh,
Could be any. Could be any.
Lemmings
Wow, that is a great
or
game.
Worms. Lemmings or Worms. I mean, kind of like play on the same theme, but either one of them.
So you're a bit of a thinker,
Day.
practical problem solver. The answer was, of course, James McAvoy.
Talking...
Of course.
Oh, James McAvoy. Yes, but okay. Well, you said you can also have GoldenEye on the N64 because we were going to talk about esports, right? So this is my esports from when I was. Yeah, my game. I've got my Game Gear and my Game Boy, proper originals, with Nigel Mansell World Championship Challenge 1992.
That's amazing.
Super Monaco Grand Prix. So, you know,
hey,
back when esports wasn't a thing. Proper. That's proper,
I would love
mate.
to see that soon. The race. Well, this is perfect. Congratulations on the quick fire question. The most noises of discomfort and frustration that I think we've ever had on Nitro Nights. So well done, Will.
I'm so bad at answering questions. I suddenly realise how horrible it is to be asked questions when you know things like, because you go blank. You completely go blank on things like that. I should have stock answers for things like that. Who's the best person you've ever interviewed, and blah blah blah.
But it comes through habit. It comes through repetition of being asked those questions. So, but we'll move on.
Yeah.
These ones you probably won't have been asked recently. So I'll take any answer. Obviously, you mentioned it before. Now is the time when people we're already turning to it and already doing it, sim racing. But how did you become aware of it? Where was that first memory of becoming aware of what was going on?
I think. I mean, it's been coming for over the last decade, and I think it came from, I used to love playing Grand Prix 2, Jeff Cramer's Grand Prix 2, and then I remember Grand Prix Legends came out, and you couldn't quite control it with your fingers on the keyboard anymore, and you needed a wheel. And then it started to come that iRacing and R Factor started to become quite a serious thing, and it wasn't about playing a computer game on a console. It was, you had to have your PC and you had to have your rig, and it started to become quite a serious thing. I think only really with for me personally when F1 launched their esports series, and you're still thinking, oh, it's just a game, and then you see how serious it is, and then you start to see the videos coming in of the big games tournaments in China or Hong Kong, and there are tens of thousands of people, not even to do with motor racing, watching people play, whatever it might have. I don't even know what game it might have been, but sort of the one where you run around like you're a wizard or something and you got to kill people. I don't know, but that's
League
and
of
that's the
Legends.
kind of
Yeah,
thing
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's what they're watching, and you're like, okay, this is either like something I don't get, or this is really something. This is something crazy big, and then you realize, actually, no, this is amazing, and it's sport of a different nature. It's entertainment of a nature that perhaps I, as in my age, hadn't quite fully comprehended that it was happening, and then when you see it is happening, you realize the depth of it and how important it is and how entertaining it can be as well. And then you suddenly see the potential of what it can become.
Yeah. I mean, obviously at the moment, through hosting the Esports Pro Series, that was last year, the previous couple of years. But even now on the Sunday, the virtual Grand Prix that are happening, and that's just one of many. We're seeing F1 drivers step up, F2 drivers, F3, academy drivers stepping into this field. Do you think there's any consequences for F1, negative and positive, that you could see?
Well, so I was really lucky to do Race of Champions last year, and Race of Champions obviously have now a round where they bring the esports racers, let them compete against one another for the ultimate honor of being able to compete for real in the Race of Champions. And I think it was Enzo Benito who did it, who graduated and whooped Lucas Di Grassi, because Di Grassi just wasn't expecting this kid to be able to jump off his computer and actually do it for real. And that was, I think, when your Brendan Lees or your Benitos turn up and actually can do it for real, that makes those drivers step up and say, okay, these cats are serious. The consequences now of seeing real world racers go against sim racers in the virtual world again is it's that, but it's the other side of that fence, because okay, again, listening this morning, watching the supercars.
Yeah, I saw you,
esports
Max
races,
Verstappen stepping up.
I was absolutely loving that. But what was really interesting was hearing some of the V8, some of the supercars races saying, look, it's not quite the same because you can go full send all the time, realizing there's no consequences to your actions. And a lot of the F1 boys who've sort of come in and done some of the esports over the last few weeks have said it's the same but different, because you have to change the way you drive slightly around it. You have to drive to what that car is in the game rather than what it is in real life. So again, it's about adaptability. It's about putting yourself in that place. And it's great to see someone like Max going and trying different championships in doing the supercars this morning. But I did find it interesting that he doesn't want to do the official F1, but he will do it on. And here's the thing: is we've always thought, oh, if F1 drivers had the chance to go and race the Indy 500 or could go and race everything, would they do it? And with Max saying that he didn't want to do the official F1 esports because it wasn't on the platform that he was used to, but he will go and do supercars because, interestingly, it's iRacing, which is the platform that he's used to. There is still that element of, well, it's still slightly in that comfort bubble for him. I wonder though, seeing McLaughlin go, the supercars racer, go and actually winning in the IndyCar race on iRacing, if Max might go and do F1 supercars, jump over onto IndyCar. That could be, to see that kind of crossover. I mean, the possibilities are limitless. It could be amazing.
I suppose we'll just have to watch this space about the effects this will have on F1, but it's already beginning to happen. I think I want to have a final question for you, Will, and I've thoroughly enjoyed chatting to you and finding out about you and your thoughts. Do you think there could be like a strong hero in the online world, like you kind of Lewis Hamilton, Michael Schumacher, those kind of? Could we see future legends of sim racing?
Yeah, I think so. It's going to be interesting though whether those future legends come from the real world of racing
Mm.
and transposed over into sim, or if sim racing in its own right will create those legends. I think at the moment it is starting to create its own legends, because when you get those full-time sim races against full-time real world races, actually the sim racers are consistently proving themselves to be slightly on a different level. You do have your likes of your Landos and your Maxes who have grown up sim racing and who are real world as well. So maybe as we move forward through our own age into the next generation, perhaps the lines will become blurred, and it'll all become one and the same. And I just think it's a really exciting time, a really really exciting time, to be able to witness proper racing in a virtual sense. And even if it can't happen out on a racetrack, we can still sit in front of our TV and get entertained by some of the great racing drivers in the world, whether they come from real world racing or whether they come from esports. Just watching them go toe to toe, it's totally. I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it.
Well, listen. Well, I'll tell you what I'm loving. Loving having you as a guest today, Will. Giving your thoughts on everything, showing us around your lounge, all the your office. Sorry.
Thanks for
The
having
thing
me.
that I love more than anything is hopefully the Game Gear and the Game Boy will make us seen back and rejuvenated in some way.
100%.
So I look forward to seeing you back,
It's
Will.
just difficult in
Thanks for.
isolation. You need a really long cable to play two player. It's the only problem.
uh, Listen, first world problems at the moment. But listen, Will, so lovely to have you on the show on Nitro Nights. To everyone who's
Thanks,
watched,
man.
listen, leave us a comment. Make sure you subscribe, follow us on Twitter. And I can tell you, Friday's episode is going to be brilliant because we are going to have Danny Engels, the GM of G2 Esports, in the mix. He is going to be coming to join us. That's a thumbs up from Will. So there you go. Everything you need to do. I've given you homework, but not really homework. We'll see you back on Friday. Thanks for watching today.